I won multiple lawsuits against a corrupt businessman who tried to force me out of business because I broke his local monopoly. I am 26 years old, and I decided to open my own business this year. On a random day quite some time ago, I went to one of the liquor stores in the closest city 30 minutes away. When we were grabbing some alcohol for a party, I was looking at the prices and saw how insane the prices were. For a 6-pack of a local beer, we were charged $15. Considering I was from a very small town and we did not have our own liquor store, I figured if I set up my own liquor store and undercut the prices of this one I would make a lot of money. Back in February I was furious about my crappy job and thinking out loud how cool it would be to own my own business to a friend. My friend's mom happened to be the president of the local bank. He told me, "Hey, with CSID, the bank has been struggling to find customers to give out loans. Right now, the bank is giving loans for cheap." A couple of weeks later I went in and met with my friend's mom and pitched my idea with the research I had done on alcohol prices, potential demand, and estimated income. I got the loan at a fantastic interest rate. I bought a building, which happened to be the former bank, and hired my dad to help me renovate the building. My dad is a general contractor, and he gave me an excellent quote on materials and labor. After working everything out with the distributors, getting the proper licenses, and getting my paperwork I needed for the government, I was ready to open my liquor store in May. I had started taking out ads in the local newspaper advertising my store and my prices. When I was in talks with my distributors I learned that even with inflation and everything else the liquor store in the other city had like an 80% markup. I talked to a local business owner, and he suggested that I have around a 40% markup. Because of this I was significantly cheaper than the closest liquor store and had a much wider selection than the gas stations and small local stores nearby. My hometown is near a national forest, as such we have a ton of people who come up for weekends for recreational activities year-round. My first week after opening I had made a $4,000 profit. It was great being my own boss. However, that's not to say that it wasn't difficult running my own business, especially that my only employee was my girlfriend, and we were both working 6 or 7 10 to 12-hour days a week. I was both manager, accountant, and cashier, but damn it's so much nicer knowing I can tell someone to pound sand for being a jerk. So, couple of weeks after Memorial Day some old guy walked into my store a couple of minutes after I opened. He seemed friendly enough, but eventually he offered to buy my store. I'm not going to say the amount, but it wouldn't have even covered my principal on the loan. I rejected the proposal outright and refused to negotiate the sum higher. He walked out of my store saying, "Velp, you'll be sorry you rejected that offer." The next month a guy walked into my store and asked if I was the owner. After saying yes, I was informed that my business was being sued by this random guy I never heard of for libel. After he left, I was freaking out and I decided that I was going to close early. When I got home, I googled the guy, and soon saw a picture of the guy that tried to buy my store. It turns out that that is the guy who owns both of the liquor stores in the nearby city. It also just so happens that he is on city council. With a little bit of further digging, I learned that this city has an ordinance that reads, any business institution that does not fulfill the definition of a restaurant, tavern, or liquor dispensary will be excluded from obtaining a license for the sale of alcohol. Later I discovered that the same guy happens to be the head of the board which approves liquor licenses. I love small town corruption. Either way I had a major issue. My maternal uncle happens to be a lawyer in a neighboring state. I decided to call him and try to get some legal advice. I talked to him and read the documents that I had been handed and served over the phone. After receiving all of the information I had read off, I was expecting to get some sort of advice, but instead heard hang on I got to make a call. And he hung up. I'm freaking out. A few hours later my uncle called back, "Hey, I just got off the phone with my partner. He agreed that we can take your case pro bono. If you would like to accept, we can discuss it at my office tomorrow." This is how I learned that my uncle is on the bar in 3 states. So we met and we discussed the case. It turns out that the guy filed the libel suit against my business based on the ads I took out in the local newspapers. He claimed that my ads were targeted to damage his and his business's reputation. There were a few other things that I had no idea what was being referenced, but uncle assured me that we would win this case no problem. 3 weeks later the case is dismissed, but after my uncle says people like that will likely try to file another suit against you. If that happens call me and promise I will help. The next day I get served again, but this time I am the defendant. Not my store, me. I swear to God I looked at the documentation and the only thing that changed was instead of my business's name mine is listed as the defendant. Same thing happens, 4 weeks later the case is dismissed. Over the next 3 months I was sued just as many times. Before the 5th case's hearing we had a settlement meeting. My uncle, the judge, the guy suing me, his lawyer, a bailiff, and I were sitting in this room. Judge says, "You two have been in court 4 times already, is there any way we could come to an agreement that'll stop this cycle of faulty litigation?" The guy's lawyer says they have an offer and hands it to my uncle who then hands it to me. It essentially read that he'll stop all litigation if I sell my business for about 30% of remaining loan principal. I outright rejected the offer and made a counteroffer. I said, "If you drop this case, I won't sue your butt for harassment." He busts out laughing, "Sue me? With what money? The legal fees alone ought to have drained you. You should be happy I chose to extend this offer and not sue your butt into bankruptcy and buy that crap hole from the bank." The judge, the bailiff, and the guy's own lawyer were all looking at him aghast for saying the silent part out loud about the real reason I was getting sued. My uncle straight out said to him, "Oh, I am sorry, apparently you were never told. I have taken all of my nephew's cases pro bono. The only money he has spent on your litigation is gas. And bluntly sir, I think your outburst has just ensured a suit against you." After that we just left, and I was then informed a few days later the litigation was dropped. Right now, my uncle and I are talking about the future suit against the guy. I want to sue the guy for a very high amount to try and get press attention on this guy and his sketchy actions. Although my uncle warned me that we'll need to be careful because if we set the damages too high it'll look like we're just being vindictive. This suit won't be pro bono, but after getting sued 5 times for free essentially, I am not going to complain.